secretly recorded phone calls is sure to be in the spotlight again today. Donald Trump returns to court for his hush money trial this morning. The jury yesterday listened to several phone conversations between Donald Trump and Michael Cohen, surreptitiously taped by Michael Cohen himself. In one call, Trump is heard telling Michael Cohen to, quote, pay with cash for a hush money deal with former Playboy model Karen McDougal. Also in the recordings, Keith Davidson. He's the lawyer who represented Stormy Daniels in 2016, who's been on the stand now for a couple days. Yesterday, Trump's legal team tried to paint Davidson as an extortionist who made a career out of targeting celebrities. At one point, Trump's team asked Davidson if he often goes, quote, right up to the line without committing extortion in celebrity cases. You should hear more of that conversation. CNN's Bryn Gingras is outside court for us once again. Bryn, Trump and Cohen, in their own words, in their own voices, what's going to happen today?
Yeah, Kate, really the second half of court yesterday was all about audio recordings being admitted into evidence for these jurors by the prosecution and also the defense. In one of those audio recordings, when Keith Davidson was on the stand, prosecutors are really trying to explain to jurors that Trump knowingly knew about these payments to both Stormy Daniels and to Karen McDougal. And so one of those recordings, Cohen is heard saying that, that Trump hated the fact that we did it. And he says, basically, to Keith Davidson, Trump didn't like the fact that they made this payment. So that's what was in that testimony. And then there was another one, a call between Trump and Michael Cohen that was played for jurors. Take a listen to it.
I need to open up a company for the transfer of all of that info regarding our friend David. I spoke to Alan about it when it comes time for the financing, which will be...
Listen, what financing?
We'll have to pay you, so... No.
Now, that call was in regards to the Karen McDougal payment. But again, prosecutors trying to show to jurors that Trump knew about all the transactions that were happening. Now, on the defense side, essentially, they were trying to paint with these recordings that Cohen wanted a spot in the White House. He had ulterior motives when, these recordings were being played. Prior to that, on the defense side, there was some heated moments when Keith Davidson was on the stand between Trump's defense team and Keith Davidson, as you pointed out, Kate. They were really trying to poke holes into the credibility of Keith Davidson, talking about how he really made a career out of making payments for shady people to celebrities, bringing up names like Hulk Hogan and Lindsay Lohan and Charlie Sheen, really trying to show that there's a pattern here of doing this and really towing the line between extortion and what is actually legal. So there's a lot of back and forth that happened in court yesterday, centered around those recordings. We'll probably, like you said, pick back up when there is this audio forensic analyst that'll be back on the stand when court resumes later this morning.
Joining us right now is defense attorney and former prosecutor Randy Zellin and CNN legal analyst and former U.S. attorney Michael Moore. Thanks, you guys, for being here. Michael, let's start with those audio tapes. Prosecutors used the recorded phone call between Michael Cohen and Trump to really bring the trial's two main characters together for the first time, trying to show Trump was directly involved with the payments and the scheme that's at the center of all of this. What does the jury take from this?
Well, I'm glad to be with both of you this morning. The prosecutors were probably itching to get the tapes in and played. And that is, they want to have Trump's voice played in the courtroom. They don't know for sure if he's going to testify or not. He blusters about that. But, hearing him as part of the discussions going back and forth and the planning, even though, I think the tapes cut both ways, frankly. I think there's some strong points on the tapes for the defense. But, simply having his voice heard is what they wanted and tying that together. So I think you'll see more of that. You'll see this sort of continued effort to loop him in, to build up their theory of a conspiracy for this hush money payment and to avoid or influence rather the election. And that's going to be how they tell their case. So this was another sort of critical piece, at least at this stage of the foundation of their case.
And Randy, as Michael says, he thinks he can see these tapes can cut both ways. I was looking at this wondering the simple fact that Michael Cohen, who will be a central witness here, that he made a practice of recording secretly phone conversations with people, including his boss. I don't know.
It's frowned upon.
Yeah, not everyone does that, you know, and especially depending on what state you're in. But what do you think?
Michael, I think, said it best. It cuts both ways, which means it's over. Almost only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. The burden of proof is on the prosecution.
Yep.
Proof beyond a reasonable doubt. That's an incredibly high bar. So far, this is all about sleaze. It's all about Michael Cohen. I'm here on set with you. That doesn't mean you can prove that I did anything wrong. So, yes, we have the former president on tape. So what? This is too high a bar. Michael said it best. As far as I'm concerned, the president is not getting convicted.
I want your take, and I want to bring to light a little bit, gentlemen, one aspect of this, what happened in court. I'm wondering what prosecutors were trying to do when through one line of questioning, which is Stormy Daniels had said that she had no sexual and/or romantic affair with the president at one point. On the stand, the prosecutor pushed her former attorney, Keith Davidson, on that. And Davidson took pains to explain that that was technically true. Here's the dramatic reading. So let me direct you to two parts in particular. The first two sentences when it states that Ms. Daniels was contacted by certain news outlets alleging that she had a sexual and/or romantic affair with Donald Trump many, many, many years ago. And then it states that that's absolutely false. How is that technically correct? Keith Davidson, well, I think you would have to hone in on the definition of romantic, sexual, and affair. Steinglass, okay, can you explain that? Davidson, well, I don't think that anyone had ever alleged that any interaction between she and Mr. Trump was romantic. Okay, how about sexual? Davidson, well, that would be a sexual and/or romantic. Why spend time on this as a prosecutor, Michael?
Yeah. Well, I don't think it was a good day or a good moment for the prosecution. I mean, you know, when you're having to get your witness to clean up the parsing of the words, I think that's a mistake. I mean, but they would know they're going to put Stormy Daniels on the stand, or at least I expect they may. So they may be trying to sort of bolster some discrepancies in her testimony to clean that up before she testifies. As this would be one of those places where she may get caught in a back and forth. They're doing that. They're also, you know, wanting to talk about what the payment was for and whether or not this was a leverage payment, whether or not this was something, you know, else, just, you know, I think they called it an accommodation payment or something like that. You know, so this is an effort, I think, to pre-clean the testimony. The problem is, and if you think about it, jurors don't like this parsing. This to them is deceit and deception. They're not lawyers and judges sitting in a courtroom every day that are used to witnesses parsing testimony and having nuances. And if you sort of think back to a former president, you know, there was a parsing of a statement about it depends on what the definition of is. We're still talking about that today, decades later. So this sort of back and forth parsing is not going to advance the credibility of the witnesses. And I think it did not look good for Mr. Davidson. Just answer the question. Was it not? What did your client mean? You were intimately involved in the discussions and the negotiations and the payment taken. Tell us what it means. So, you know, I think while the prosecutor wanted to clean it up, it left some advantages for the defense in that particular moment.
And then that leaves me to wonder, what can today bring, Randy? There are whispers of who could come next after this digital evidence analyst is done on the stand, and who would be next. Whispers that it could be Hope Hicks, could be coming very soon. What former White House official, formerly very close confidant of Donald Trump through campaign 2016 into the White House, what does she bring? What does she need to provide?
Well, what she needs to provide for the prosecution is not only putting the former president in the room, but providing the jury with the knowledge that the former president knew that the entries in the books were false for purposes of influencing the election. She needs to bring knowledge, and she needs to bring the former president's intent to do this, to influence the election. But to me, the real stunning moment is going to be when the jury starts to think, wait a minute, nobody thought he was going to win the election, not even his own people, which means why would he be doing this to influence the election?
To try to win.
Maybe not.
Randy, it's good to have you. Michael, it's great to see you. Thank you as always.